Welcome to my channel, Ken here. Let's take a look at the patch by Flock Audio, a computer-controlled patch bay, replacing a 100-year-old technology. Please stick around to the end and I'll let you know my opinion. Let's go! I have a project open here, just drums, bass, guitar, and a synthesizer. Pretty much everything is done on this app right here, and right now I have a completely blank slate. You can see the vertical lines here, path 1 and so forth, and it just goes up to 32 right now. In essence, I have the Lynx hooked up to 8 ins and outs, and then I have outboard gear hooked up to the remainder of the inputs and outputs. 32 ins and outs on this one. The last two, 31 and 32, are there's a switch here, front inputs and front outputs. You can select whether you want to use the outputs or inputs on the front panel, or you want to use what you have put into the loop down here. Right now they're off, so this pedal pusher is showing as ins and outs, left and right. In order to set your equipment up, you have to set it up in here, this little hardware setup, and all your devices are set up. So you can see here, I use a Lynx Aurora in audio interface, and the first 8 on this vertical column here is the ins and outs, but the input says input here, but that is the patch input, so therefore it has to be the Lynx out. The same thing here. So the top 8 here are Lynx, and then I have a bunch of outboard gear here, mic pre's and compressors and EQs, etc. Now you can, over here on the left side, you can deny or allow 48 volt to be present on this particular in or out. Well, it would be essentially the input on the patch. So you have to save here, you can export it or import it. Let's say you change studio and you bring your own rack or whatever. I'm not sure that's super useful, but I haven't had any use for it. And you can change here, you can change the numbering on the left pane. I like to have the numbers there. And then you have a master on-off switch for the phantom power. So that's basically it on this. Over here you have the settings and the manual, and go to the website and user preferences, which is the one you need to kind of adjust a little bit depending on how this thing gets hot. I think it gets pretty hot, so it has a fan inside of it, and the fan, you can adjust what you want the fan to do. I've set it to just emergency fan only, but you can have it constantly going. I think it's slightly noisy. The number one thing I have about this thing is that fan is there. You can change the language to French if you want, and change the fonts in the whole thing. Now I'm going to pull up the stem mix here, and here are the drums. Let's say I wanted to have an EQ and compressor outboard gear in, so let's set it up first. We'll set it up on path 5 and 6, stereo always. So let's use path 5 and 6 to get out of the Lynx and into the patch bay. So we'll do a Lynx 5 out, Lynx 6 out, Lynx 5 in, and Lynx 6 in. So it doesn't matter, whoops. Doesn't matter where you place it, you can place it anywhere and it'll work. I'll just put it here to make it easy. And let's put the Better Maker EQ in here. I have a Better Maker EQ here. So we'll put that here, and we'll put a, I don't know, successor compressor on it. And now you have your patch bay set up. Much easier than cables. now I want to put it into the, I have to put it into the track here. This is a group. So what we need to do is we need to set the flock 5 and 6 as an insert here. And now we have the bypass it and play the track. So we have the Better Maker first, and then the Heritage Successor compressor as the second unit here, right? So that's how it works. Let's do something on the, let's say, the bass. We'll put a, we need to go and let's use path 3 and 4 for that. So we need Lynx 3 here, Lynx 4, and we're gonna get back in. So the round trip is here to the audio interface, and let's put the RM8, which is Tube Tech's EQ first, and then the compressor second, and I'll solo the bass, and we need to get, here's the bass stem, so let's just put the insert in, which is 3 and 4. 3 and 4 because I've set this up over here in, this is Nuendo, and I'm using as you can see here the flocks, this is flock 5 and 6, so that's the inputs and outputs. That will be the drums, and the bass thing I just set up is right here. You have to set this up so the sequencer knows the outputs and inputs of your audio interface. And that's that. So the bass here, here's the flock. I'm going to bypass it and bypassed, active. That's how the inserts, like the round trips, work. Now, lots more you can do with this. So there's a microphone here. Now, in order to hook that up, you need to, let's just use path 1 here. Now, what I have to do is, now I've hooked it up to the front of the flock. That means that I have to switch to audio inputs to the front right here. And now it shows up here as front 31. So now it's active here. Now what we need to do is we need to get it into the audio interface. So I'm just going to use number 1 here. Now this is a phantom powered microphone, a condenser. I can show it to you. Phantom powered condenser. And we are going to activate the phantom power on it. Now, Flock explicitly tells us in the manual and other places that it's important to use the Flock phantom power because you don't want phantom power to run through uncontrolled, and here it will always tell you if there's phantom power present on the front panel or the patch will supply the phantom power. It's just easier here because you're just focusing on one thing. Now we have the phantom power enabled here on the front to the microphone that's plugged into the front, and we have the Lynx in here. Now there's no mic preamp here yet, so we're gonna go and pick one. Here's the Kniff mic preamp all tube thing, and right now we have the input here with phantom power into a mic preamp into the Lynx. Now in order to record, and this is where it's a little bit different. So if you look all the way over here on mono 1, instead of saying this is an input, you have to put an insert into it, which is a little different, I think. So you're going to use flock 1 here. The input, as you can see now, the mic is active and I'm talking into it. Now the same thing goes for, let's say, a line in that I've set up here, flock 2, but we don't have it set up over here at all. So we need the front in here, front in 32, and we need to go into the audio interface. So let's just use Lynx 2 in. I have a cloud lifter, which is basically a straight boost on a line, and it requires phantom power, so I'm going to turn that on, proceed, and it goes into the Lynx. I'm going to grab a guitar. There, works effortlessly. The goal here that I found to be by far the best thing about this is that you can save presets. So let's say this preset I've set up, this is just a basic preset for this particular video. So I have it labeled up here and I'm going to save it now. I'm going to save it and overwrite what I just did, and we have a new one. Let's say I wanted to change the whole setup with the project. And you just go in here and you find one of these presets. Let's say this one. There. So now it's set up for the project called Metal 1. Super easy, and it just adds so much flexibility to your workflow. And now we have a mix that I use for this. Super easy. The last thing is, let's say I wanted I've set a little thing here up for a pedal pusher loop, and right here on 1 and 2, it's sending out the loop out to the pedal pusher. But right now, since this is a mono signal, we'll just use number 2, I think it is. It's going through a Blue Sky Strymon bypassed. And now it's running out through a pedal loop. So that's super easy also. Now, I've heard rumors that they're going to use a plugin that you'll be able to use this for inside a project, so it'll recall your whole setup with the project. Of course, there's still the settings on the actual units. That'll be a tricky thing to do, but it'll be super easy if you had a recall option with the project, so it pulls up the IOs and the ins outs and the reamping or whatever it is you've set up for that particular project. Pretty cool stuff. I think that they have a really, really great idea here. Actually, it's speeding up the workflow tremendously. It's very transparent sounding. I don't hear any artifacts really. The only issue I have, it does get hot, which is kind of problematic. You need space around it, which always is a problem when you're dealing with outboard gear. But I never had any issues with the computer interface, meaning it's just a USB, but it just loads up with no problem. And I don't hear any pops, I don't hear any clicks when you change these cables around with virtual cables around, you know, these little squares on the screen. Also, the front panel convenience is super great, especially when you're just doing 1 or 2 instruments at a time. You can just do it on the fly, which is super convenient. Of course, the wiring on the back takes quite some effort because it's like any patch bay. It needs to be hooked up correctly. and it's all done with DB25 cables. And before, it wasn't DB25 for me. It was hardwired, so I had to make all these DB25 cables, which is a lot of work actually, a lot of solder points. But other than that, I think this is a great solution. It's definitely a back saver. It's, you know, having all those cables hanging out is great. Is it worth the money? Well, in the long run, I think it is. It is expensive, but the reality is the patch bays are expensive with all the wiring and the contact points and so forth. No patch bay is cheap, I think. But it's kind of nice to have a new alternative to something that's 120 or 30 years old. This goes back to the early telephone days, which is crazy to think about how old that technology is. I have to commend them. This is a great idea, and I can see some improvements coming that would make it even better. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, take care.